the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to episode 148 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Bexon. Today, we're going to be talking with Walter Brenes of Energy Law Firm, but he's a different type of lawyer than we're typically used to. He's a litigation lawyer who focuses mainly on environmental law and protecting the natural beauty of Costa Rica. So Walter and I have actually worked on a few projects together. I've never been on the other side of the table to him, thank God, because he is a attack dog for sure. So always nice to have on my side of the table. So I thought good to get him on the podcast just to discuss his point of view and experiences when it comes to investing in Costa Rica, the environment, and just what you should really know about, investing in Costa Rica when, and the protection of the natural beauty that Costa Rica has here. We have quite a few environmental laws. I always joke here is that you can steal stuff and not go to prison, but you cut down a tree and they'll send you to prison here. So yeah, I mean, as it should be, in my opinion. But anyway, remember, if anyone wants to reach out to us, they can do. If you're looking to invest in Costa Rica, you're looking to relocate, looking to buy property here, and just want some guidance and someone to hold your hand. As we say, we've got 15 minutes for everyone. You can email us info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. We're a little different in how we work because we kind of guide you and kind of hold your hand through the process, kind of sitting on your side of the table, as I mentioned there, and just making sure you're making the right decision for the lifestyle and also investment goals that you have here. So kind of, like, I suppose, having a good lawyer or accountant with that when it comes to basically Costa Rica. So you can reach us info@investingcostarica.com. But let's get straight into the podcast. Good afternoon, Walter. How are you doing?
Super. Thanks for the invitation, Richard.
No, not at all. I think you're basically in Colombia at the moment, right? It's not often that I think you're the first guest that we've had that's on the podcast from Colombia, but lives in Costa Rica.
Exactly. I'm in Medellin, Colombia.
Wow. Well,
I exactly live in Santa Teresa.
In Santa Teresa.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, for a lot of people that don't know where Santa Teresa is, basically it's on the Pacific coast here in Costa Rica. It's a very developing, I would say, beach town that's seen a lot of change over the years, but it's kind of a cool place to hang out, good surf, good food, and good people. So
exactly. That's Santa Teresa.
Awesome. Well, Walter, I mean, the question I always like to ask at the beginning is, with the world currently kind of in flux, both, economically and politically, there are things going on in the world. How do you think Costa Rica is doing, and why do you think it's doing good or doing bad? I mean, how is Costa Rica doing?
Well, Costa Rica is this kind of country that have a phenomenal, that we have been balanced all the time.
Yep.
People just still coming to Costa Rica. We are, I know that the people that come to Costa Rica know this, or they will figure out when they arrive to Costa Rica. We are an expensive country. That's something that the most of the tourists know, but there's just come to Costa Rica because we have the wildlife. We have this kind of jungle, in the middle of the Central America. So the people just start coming just for having this kind of experience with Costa Rica. So for me, Costa Rica is always doing great, even, for the tourists, there is one of the most important pillars of the country, because people just come to Costa Rica just for going to the beach, just for hanging out, just for having this kind of experience with the environmental part that we have in Costa Rica.
Yeah. I mean, again, you mentioned that you live in Santa Teresa. Have you seen things slow down a little bit? Have prices come down, or are they kind of pretty, they continue to, I suppose, go up? Or, I mean, what is the trend that you're seeing in Santa Teresa?
Well, in Costa Rica, like in the rest of the countries in the world, we have this kind of difference. The new history starts with COVID. We have post-COVID right now. So we're still receiving a lot of people that just want to come to live to Costa Rica in the 2021. Because the 20 was a difficult year for mostly all the world, right? But the next year, still in COVID, just because Costa Rica get this kind of more balanced decisions, about COVID, the regulations about the health impediments just for moving around the country and even just for getting into the country. So we start receiving a lot of people. So that year, the 21, was like the best year that Costa Rica had in a long time. We saw the full country. The people just start coming here and say, hey, we want to live in Costa Rica. This is an amazing country. So the prices just go higher than ever in that year, the 21. Next, the 22 just keep going in that way, mostly just because all the Asian countries still was like, like closed. So the people that used to go to Thailand, even to Indonesia, they just say, no, we're going to go to Costa Rica because we have, this kind of similarities with these kind of countries in Asia, I've been there, so I can say to you, you can go to Indonesia and you can go to Costa Rica and you're going to feel like in mostly the same country, So that's maybe like a point of reference. Right now in the 23, I really feel that everything is going down, but going down just like looking for a balance point, that's useful when you are like in this kind of market that you sell all the properties and then you don't have more properties to sell. But then start like the next step is that, hey, now we're going to build, So mostly of the people that just come to Costa Rica, like investors, they start growing, that these kind of villas options, this is more like in Tamarindo, Nosara, Santa Teresa, even in Ubita, you go even to Dominical, Ubita, Ballena. So the people start going there and say, hey, we need to create this kind of experience with villas, right? So now more thinking about doing like these big hotels like Cancun maybe, or even some of the hotels in Costa Rica, maybe 20 years ago, they start doing, like the big hotels, we all include everything. Now we're just going more just for this kind of experience, like going to jungle activities in the beaches, like, hey, you need to be living there. So for me, that's the, like the composition of Costa Rica right now. We're going down, we're just looking for the balance.
Well, I mean, it's funny that you say that because, again, I think that's true. I think we're returning to somewhat form of normality or some form of, seasonality that we had pre-COVID. But the thing is, the tide has risen, meaning it's a lot higher than it used to be. I mean, when you look at arrivals into Costa Rica, tourism arrivals, this year, January, February, March, I mean, they're better than 2019. April was better than 2019, When I speak to hoteliers now, they're like, well, May was quieter than last year, but I think we're starting to see that return to that seasonality that we had here in Costa Rica where, December, January, February, March, April was high season. May was a little quieter. June picks up. July and August is big. And then September and October is really quiet. And then it starts to pick up again, you'd see.
Exactly. That's the normal composition about the tourists that used to be in Costa Rica. But absolutely, yes, we have like a difference between pre-COVID and post-COVID and COVID. So when we start doing like this kind of like comparisons about Costa Rica, we mostly go to the best year, to 21. So when you start doing that, like 2019 versus 2021 and 23, so you have like this only, this is something that is like like incredible. We are just doing like this comparison with 5 years ago. No one's returned to the 2007 or 2009. That was like a really hard years for Costa Rica. We have like pumping to all the hotel areas. Like buying properties from people that just come from upside in the 2007, and then 2009 we just go down. Because all the projects just stop. Because all the financial situation in the States, right? So that's something that Costa Rica is just having this kind of experience, for me right now. Been living in the last 8 years in different part of the country in Costa Rica. So the people right now, there's no like, they just want to be like residents here, they have like 6 months in Costa Rica and 6 months in countries. They just want to change, this is all about the climate even, like, hey, you're not going to be in New York, in the middle of the winter, you can be in Costa Rica, right? Well, so that's experience that we're having with the people that just come to Costa Rica.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to be in New York at the moment with the smoke and ash in the air there, unfortunately. I mean, that's absolutely terrible. I mean, we're so blessed here in Costa Rica. I was chatting with someone, I can't remember who it was yesterday, where we were like, Costa Rica really has no natural disasters. Its weather climate is great. The volcanoes here, which we have, are pretty inactive. I mean, every so often they'll spew some stuff in the air, but it never really impacts us. And it's just, we're really like everything's steady here. I mean, that's what it is. The people are steady, the politics is steady, the economy is steady, the environment is steady.
Yeah, well, if you check the full area, like Latin America, you're gonna feel that Costa Rica and Uruguay is like the best countries for living for sure.
Yep.
We have like this kind of economy, the political power, the country's like just going up for sure. But the difference between living in Uruguay and Costa Rica is that we have the wildlife and summer climate, during the
Yep.
year. Because we have like the rainy season, but when the people come to Costa Rica and say, hey, you have winter here? No, we have mostly like a rainy season, and one day in the rainy season is just like summer.
Yep.
So you can have this kind of experience in Costa Rica that you can feel like, okay, I just want to go to the mountains just because I'm just looking for like for a different climate, but you can go even and stay in a city that is going to be like summer. So
Yep.
you have kind of different microclimates in Costa Rica that's
Yeah,
super good
definitely.
that people use
Definitely.
have this kind of experience in Costa Rica just because that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Costa Rica has so many microclimates that if you want hot and humid, or you want hot and dry, or you want cold and humid, like cold and wet, I mean, we have everything here. So, I just hiked Chiripo, and, it was, close to 0 degrees up there, but it was beautiful. Like, I love hiking it. It's the only place where I can see the Caribbean and the Pacific, at one time. It's incredible. So
That's the main reason because, and maybe this is one of the most important points that we're going to talk today, is why we need to protect the environmental part in Costa Rica. Why the wildlife is so important for Costa Rica.
Yep. Well, can you explain to people listening here, exactly what it is that you do, and like typically like what clients are working with you on, like what type of projects do you take on?
Well, I'm a solo partner in my law firm. The name is Energy Law Firm. I created this law firm 11 years ago. I was thinking just about working with the energy issues. Costa Rica have like only one company that's in charge of the energy.
Yep.
Is that right? So
Yep.
you come to Costa Rica and you start saying, okay, where's the energy comes, right? So it comes from the state company. That's the name CISA, right? So I start trying to work that in the 2012. For my surprise, we didn't, open the market with energy. So I started going more, into another environmental issues, because it was like, okay, there is no more energy issues here in Costa Rica. So what else, So I started working with crocodiles, then with sharks, with turtles, with jaguars, with monkeys, with sharks. I'm working with the hammerhead sharks also in conservation. So mainly my work, I'm a litigation lawyer. I do criminal law, I do labor, civil, governmental issues, but my main core is in wildlife conservation. Litigation against, it's maybe for some people it's gonna sound like, like weird, but I'm a litigation lawyer. I sue my own government just for protecting the wildlife in Costa Rica and even other natural resources, for example, rivers, mountains, forests, even energy, So
Yeah.
I'm the guy that fight against his own government just for protecting the environmental part in Costa Rica. That's where me. That's my work.
Well, and you and I have worked on some of those things together, and I actually sued the Costa Rican president and the tourism the head of the health minister with the QR code. So I mean, it's the beauty of this country, which I think that like in the UK or the US or probably Canada, we would never think about suing our own government. Like we would never think about, like, we'd be in probably so much trouble. It would be incredible. But like here in Costa Rica is you can sue the government and you can sue the president and sue ministers, like you can go after them.
You can still be alive,
Yeah.
because with the country that when you start doing this, like I'm an activist, in environmental issues, right? So when you start doing this in other countries around the world, you're going to be in danger, You're
Yep.
going to be like one of the guys that is going to be the next to die. And this is true, because I know other fighters that is around on the world trying to work in the same time working, and they need to be protected for sure because they start feeling like this kind of, okay, I'm going to be in danger, right? So we have that opportunity also in the 20 when was all these COVID issues. I also sued the government just because they was trying to do the right things with the COVID, but they don't have like an emergency plan for attending the. So you can go on Google and you can look around my cases and you're gonna find that too. So it's more about doing the correct, So I that's the way that I work, Mostly I defend projects or I go against projects that is affecting the environmental quality. There is no respecting the wildlife in Costa Rica. So that's weird sometimes, because for sure, I know lawyer could say, hey, Walter, you're gonna lose a lot of jobs. But it's not true because the people start saying, hey, Walter, I want to have you into my project because I don't want to get into another problems with another environmental activities.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you're interacting with clients, meaning clients are contacting you, I mean, is it more about environmental conservation? Is it more about making sure that when they're developing a project or doing anything here in Costa Rica, they're doing it right? I mean, what are some of the projects that you typically work on?
Well, the typical project that comes to me is the project that just want to be like sustainable, that
sustainable, yeah.
Exactly. That they just say me, hey, Walter, I want to have you in my team because I want to do the right things. That's my preferred client. The client that just comes say, hey, Walter, I know that you know how to handle things with the government of Costa Rica, and also you're gonna be like saying me, where is the red flags into my project? So I want to hire you. That's the preventive part. I love that part. And the other kind of clients I have is people that are really into conservation issues. They say, hey, Walter, I know there is a project that is going to affect the forest. I know there is a project that is going to affect, the indigenous people. I know there's going to cut a lot of trees, so we need you. Yeah. Mostly like communities, they just come and call me, hey, Walter, we have a group into our community that just want to work with you. We love your job. You're trying to protect all that we also defend. So we want to work with you. We want you into our team. So that's the second client. And the third client is the corporations. They just say, hey, Walter, we are in a big mess, environmental mess. We know that you know how to handle this. We just want to have you into our team because in that way they're going to figure out that we're working with someone that is going to do that they like a good job, Yeah. So that clients is more difficult, because at some point people could say, hey, Walter, you're trying to defend someone that is being affecting the environmental in Costa Rica, and say no, they just want to do better things and attending his problem because they're just saying, hey, Walter, we really do like a big mistake. So we need you in our team.
I mean, what are some
different kind of clients?
Yeah. I mean, what are some of the main mistakes that you see from an environmental perspective that investors make when, in developing in Costa Rica? I mean, what are some of the things that you've just seen where you're like, oh my God, if I would have just been able to help you with that in 2 seconds?
What is the main mistake that people commit here in Costa Rica? They don't have the right people in their teams, because, for example, you come from the States, you come from Italy, you come from France, Australia, you come from another kind of different country with a different regulations, different law. So you need a good team, like a local team that can do supporting you in the right path. So the projects that I just go against them is just because they don't have the right people working with them. So they start doing a lot of mistakes, in the design, the construction, in the permits, with the bureaucracy. So they don't have the right people. So maybe in the 90% of the cases, it's just because they don't have the right engineer, the right lawyer, and that's the way that they go into on all mistakes into the litigation, the laws here in Costa Rica.
But I mean, what kind of stuff are they doing, Walter? I mean, is it they're cutting down trees or building too close to the river?
That's more complex because they do a lot of bad things. For example, just for giving the usual part of the errors they commit. You get a big property, like 100 acres here in Costa Rica, and they start saying, okay, we're gonna prepare the land just for selling the project, so they go with machines and start cutting down trees and start, saying, okay, we're going to use this land and this is going to be green. So they start doing all this process without any permits.
Yep.
They cut down trees, they start moving the land, they go with machines and start, putting fences, and then they just go and say, okay, we're selling the property here, like land for 5,000, for example.
Yep.
So that's the more usual error that the people commits, because you need a permit for everything in Costa Rica, even for cutting a tree in your house. This is like a tree that is protected by law. So the first step, just for avoiding these kind of problems and errors, is having like the right like the right people in your team. So for avoiding this, right?
I mean, are there any other laws that you think anyone listening to this podcast should be aware of, when developing and, investing in Costa Rica? I mean, you talked about trees there, about getting permits. I always joke that, like, look, if you steal something in Costa Rica, they probably won't send you to prison, but you cut a tree down, they could send you to prison very easily. Like wildlife and trees, Costa Ricans take that stuff seriously.
Yeah, well, we have like an historic issue with the trees, in the forest, like even 80 years ago, 90 years ago, we used, the land just for, cutting down all the trees in the forest, just because we need to start growing, food and everything, around. So just for having cows even. And there was like an institution for the government that started giving land to the people. So the people just go over there, cut all the trees and start, like growing, I don't know, like coffee, for example, right?
Yep.
Or even whatever they want to grow in that land. So the government just give 10 years to that person, the right to explode, all the resources they have in the land. So we start putting all the trees. In the 60s, we almost lost like a very big percent of the forest that we have in Costa Rica. So the politics started talking about it, say, hey, we need to change the law. So for the 80s, we start recovering all the forests, and we are so, like landed just from protected the forest just because we changed the regulations and the law, and we start being more conscious about the importance that we have with the forest. So that's one of the main law that we need to be taking care about, the forest part. Also, we have the water issues. Mostly of the projects have a lot of problems with water, because here in Costa Rica, you want to start a project, even if you want to build your house, you need to have water. That's one of the first issues that we find, when you want to live in the jungle, for example. This is usual, in Malpais, for example, is near from Santa Teresa, and even in Santiago, this is near from Santa Teresa, because the company that supplies the water, there's like it's a government company that the name is Aya. So they don't have that capacity just for giving you the water into the mountains. So when you buy a big property, with a jungle there, but you don't have water, so you cannot do anything. So
Yep.
that's the second one. You need to be aware about the forest part. You need to be aware about the water part, and then you need to be aware about the energy also, because Costa Rica have like 90.99% cover of public energy, right? But you need to go into the governmental institution also, that the name is ICE, just for getting the energy for the property. So that's going to be like another part of the regulations that we need to be aware of, because you need to take care about the forest, you need to take care about the water, you need to take care about the energy, and then you need to be aware about the land. So that's another part that is super important, because mostly the people just go over there and say, hey, I just want to buy this land, I want to do like commercial area. But you need to follow up about what is the type of the land that you are buying. And maybe
Yep.
this is going to sound like weird, because most of the people say, hey, Walter, but that's my land. I just want to do whatever I want to do. Well, no, that's not in that way. We have like these kind of urbanistic regulations that
Yep.
you need to check out first what kind of project you can do that. So that's mainly the another part of the law that you need to review. Also, you need to be careful when you have a river in your property, because that's going to create like a restriction for you. Another error that's super, like it's something logical for me. When you buy a property, you need to be aware that you have a road or the entry for your property.
Yep.
So the people just go and say, hey, this is a beautiful land, I just want to buy this. Hey, did you check that you have a road? I know that maybe, for someone to live in Miami, even in Los Angeles, is going to say like, what? A property without a road, without an entry? Well, we have a lot of cases here in Costa Rica in that way.
Yeah, there are.
And the last one that is super important because most of the people didn't check out this. You need to be careful with the map, of the property, because here in Costa Rica we have like the title of the property. That is just you go into national registry, and you can see the title. But then when you go physical to the property, you need to check about the map of your property, that is going to be like, if they have like a road, they have the boundaries, if they have like a river market there over there, you have like another kind of other restrictions, like easements, for example, that is pretty usual here in Costa Rica, have an easement in favor of another neighbor, right? So that's something important. When you're going to buy a property here, you need to check first the land, and you're going to need a topographer, just for checking out the maps that you're going to buy, even mostly in jungle part, or even, like out of the city, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think buying land here in Costa Rica, I mean, it just goes back to the point. You just need to make sure you have a real good team. I mean, we've done so much due diligence on land before, where stuff doesn't come back great. I mean, as you mentioned, that the serviumbre, the easement to the road doesn't exist, or that like it doesn't touch public road, and the uso suelo, like its zoning is not right for the project that you want to do. And they're like, no, you can just change that really easy. And it's like, no, you can't change that very easy, or no, you can just get water from the river. I'm like, well, maybe for one house, but not for a project, and then you got to treat that water.
Richard, that's another project because I don't know why, but most of the people that just give advices to this kind of project start saying, and this is something like cultural, like something that is in the Costa Rican people. Always they say, no, yes, it's easy. You can do it. No, yeah, that's possible. Yeah, no, don't worry. We're gonna get a solution for that. And then in the next months, you're gonna start having big problems when you start people are saying that it's gonna be easy. Because here in Costa Rica, it's not easy. And that's part of my job.
Nothing's easy.
I started looking, for being much faster with getting the permits, in a legal way. So that's the other part of my job. Like try to find like the most easy ways to advance with your project, because every day that you don't advance with your project, you are losing money, because you go there and you buy the property. It's going to be like the one of the most expensive part of the projects. And then you start going with the permits, and you are going to be like in 1 year, design project and getting the permits and everything. And then one day, you are like in a 3, 4, 5 years getting permits, and the 5 years you say, hey, we are losing a lot of money. So you need to get into like a good project, a good design, having like everything like very mapped when you are buying a property for doing a project, even for your own house. I have clients, they have been fighting for getting the permits from their own house. It's like, what, Walter, really? Yeah, super normal having problems with building like the normal house here in Costa Rica, because they don't get like a good architect, for example, like with the engineer for doing that construction part.
I completely agree. I mean, Walter, we deal with this all the time. I'm in the middle at the moment of actually developing a piece of land myself, bridge permits. It's a year to get a bridge permit, and then I got to build the bridge. And I mean, there's a lot of work, a water study in order to get the sufficient water pipes there. I have to pay for all the water infrastructure. Before I even got close to the land, I think I ended up spending about $20,000 and about 4 months doing due diligence on a piece of land, But it was worth it. Why? Because if not, I'd be stuck with land that I could do nothing with.
Exactly. And you need to be careful, because then you buy a land that you can do your project, and you need to change the project, for example, and you're going to figure out that 1 year later. So you're going to lose the money that you are trying to do to put in that project. There is no function.
I mean, I always say Costa Rica is not the country to be penny wise and pound foolish. You just need to be really smart, and it just goes back to having a great team. I mean, again, if you and I were to go and invest in the US or in Canada or in Europe, we'd make sure we had a great team. So
that's something, Richard, that's something that I didn't get it, from the people that come to Costa Rica. For example, you have your lawyer in the States, you're gonna look for the best lawyer that you can have. If you're gonna have like a construction company, you're gonna look for the best company you can have. But they just come to Costa Rica and they start looking, for whatever they want to have, and that it's not about it's not about you, it's not about your project, it's about your team. And that's something that you need to understand in Costa Rica. if you want to have like a big project and like something that can be like successful for sure, you need to have the right team, and
Yeah.
that's something you need to be very specific with the people that is coming to Costa Rica. Be careful. This is not like about like putting money into danger. It's not like a risky operation. It's just because you just have the right team for doing the right things.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, what is happening currently in Costa Rica that you're very happy about, Walter? And what is happening that you're not so happy about?
Well, right now, Costa Rica, this is the most happy part of this. We are getting into a multicultural country. We are receiving people for all the countries around the world. So this is gonna be like amazing in the future because our kids is gonna grow like in a different kind of culture. Like in a multicultural culture, right? So that's super good even, because Costa Rica is receiving more money from outside than from inside, right?
Yep.
So here and they just want to live here and we're going to change this country, like in the right path if we have the right people coming here, right?
Yep.
So I'm super, like into that, like receiving more people. I encourage people to come to Costa Rica, because right now even some states in United States are really complicated, and people is just start moving from some part of the country for another states. For example, people is going right now to Florida, right? Like they're coming from Los Angeles, from New York, from Washington. These just want to live in Miami, right? Because all the conditions, right? Even more tax, right? But it's the same in Costa Rica, the people just coming here, and I feel really into that, like keep growing the country, with all these kind of people that is coming to visit us. And the sad part is when we're receiving people that is not gonna into that conservation and protecting the wildlife and everything, because some people they just come from another country and they just want to do the same that they used to do in their countries, like destroying everything around.
Yep.
They just want this big building, for commercial and residential areas, but they don't respect the jungle that they have around. So this kind of projects and this kind of people, made me really sad because hey, if you want to come into Costa Rica, you can do like amazing projects, respecting, the environmental, and you are gonna charge more if you do like environmental and sustainability projects in that way. So that's the south part of Costa Rica. We are receiving people that don't understand that, hey, you need to protect the country just for making more money and just for keep, like growing the money that we do in tourists, because you come here and just thinking about making money because you want to put like a casino. No, if you want to go into a casino, you can go to Las Vegas and it's super amazing, right? Even you can go to mountains in Las Vegas, but hey, you have the casinos there. But coming here, just thinking about doing like casino, it's not like the country for doing that,
Yeah. I mean, I say no to projects all the time. And again, if it's casino or large hotels, like, I got offered a casino one once, a 250 room hotel once. And I was like, look, guys, that's not what I do, but also what I don't believe in is good for Costa Rica either. I don't believe that that's good for the longevity of Costa Rica. But I agree with you of that, like, I know people that have come here and, have a complete neglect for the environmental issues. And basically it's got them into hot water. I've got a friend at the moment, where the neighbor basically took down part of the forest to build a road to the, to the beach. So they're fighting them at the moment, and they did it in the middle of the night. But, well, Walter, my last question for you, which is a question I love to ask everyone. If you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you invest it in and why?
Well, for sure, and this is like my part into if I have that money, I'm gonna buy forest for sure. And I'm gonna do like this kind of houses that is gonna be like kind of like lamping into the forest, So I'm gonna have these kind of projects that people could come to my property and say, hey, Walter, you have like a jaguar coming down, and you can see, like all the monkeys, in the morning. So that's for sure the project that's going to be successful in Costa Rica. People just want to come into experience. They can live, into the wildlife environmental part of Costa Rica. So looking around a property, you can have like this kind of river and the monkeys around, and and you are just trying to do like something really, like something really smart, like constructions that is going to be like just putting it into the same forest, the same trees, the same rocks that you have into the properties. And for sure, that could be my kind of projects that I can invest for sure. Yeah.
I don't know why. I think of like the Ewok village on Star Wars, with like these platforms with bridges. Like
that kind of projects could be like, for example, if I have the money, I'm gonna do that kind of project.
Yeah.
I just want to be living like in an organic site, you know.
Yeah.
You're used, to live in this kind of country, like this. I just want to live into an area that is gonna feel like I'm real alive,
Yeah.
like actually with all this organic life around me, Even it could be like this kind of avatar, like the movie.
Yeah.
I in that way, like, hey, what about if we used to be in that way, And now we're trying to get into the real humans. You can see that movie also.
Yeah.
I love that. That explains the real world that we're living right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically live in harmony with the environment and animals around you.
And that kind of experience is gonna produce more money than a large hotel.
Yeah.
Why? People is gonna pay for an exclusive and VIP experience.
Right?
Yeah. It's going to be connected, and it's going to be, I don't want to live more in this big city in London, I just want to go into Costa Rica and have this kind of experience with the forest. I just gonna hear, like the birds in the morning, like the river, the sound of the river. So people pay for that, we're blessed for living in Costa Rica because we know how you can feel that way. But why you come to Costa Rica looking for that kind of experience, one day you go into a large project with concrete? I don't get it, Something that maybe the people that is coming to Costa Rica need to look around, say, hey, this is not the kind of the country that I need. Maybe I just need to go to a large city for having like a large project, For example, here in Medellin, there is a lot of projects from people from the States and even from Europe that are coming, but they're doing like large buildings. But you look around and it's a big city. So good.
A concrete jungle.
Exactly, it's a concrete jungle. But you go to Costa Rica and you're still trying to do the same. It's gonna be like, hey, you are not getting what kind of project or what are you here in Costa Rica? If you want to live in Costa Rica, for sure, you need to be thinking about being like in avatar life.
And if you don't, Walter's gonna come after you.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Walter, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. I really appreciate you sharing your experience and advice with everyone. I'll put all of your contact details down in the description for anyone that wants to reach out to you. But really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Richard. And also, I'm a surfer, so I really understand the ocean part of living in Costa Rica. So even if you are like a large investor that just want to live in Costa Rica, hey, you need to become a surfer too, and you're going to understand why we live in Costa Rica.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thanks very much, Walter. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It's a bit of a different podcast than we've had normally. I mean, I love Walter. He's just really passionate about the environment here. Whether it's be jungle, waterways, land, wildlife, the oceans. It's so nice to have, I suppose, a litigator, basically watching the government and watching people, just making sure that things are being done correctly here. And, I couldn't agree more with Walter that this is a country you need to respect the environment here when developing or building, and just do things right. Because, as I said here, it's you can steal and not get in trouble, but you cut down trees or do anything environmental, like you can get yourself in serious trouble here. So we're always advising clients on what to do and what not to do on that front. But if you want to reach out to us for anything, want to chat with us about investing, buying, relocating, anything here in Costa Rica, feel free to reach out to us, info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. Remember, we're not here to sell you anything. So just here to kind of really get an idea of what you're looking to do and see if we can help you and give you a soft landing, or just give you information and put you in contact with people that can help you. I know that there's, a myriad of resources out there that's sometimes confusing, or there's no information out there. So, like a good Tika Linda, as they call me here, like a pageant queen here that knows quite a few people, I'm happy to connect you with whoever you need. So yeah. And also coming up on the 150th podcast, we're coming up to 150. I've got a big one coming up for the 150 as well. So look forward to getting that one out there. But Thanks very much, guys. Appreciate it. If you've enjoyed it, please give us a thumbs up, 5 stars, and keep passing the podcast. It's so nice to hear people that it was given to someone, they should listen to it. I hope that they're not too long and not too boring, but we'll continue to do them. And again, if you have anything you want, just reach out to us. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.